The Cleveland Browns didn't just win a game, they watched a nearly 3-decade-old curse quietly die on the turf. The final readout, 24-10 over the Raiders, looks ordinary until you remember who was calling the plays. A fifth-round rookie, Shedeur Sanders, making his first regular season start. For a franchise that turned quarterbacking into a national punchline, this wasn't a tidy stat line. It was a moment that felt like someone finally opened a window in a room that had been closed for years. Fans didn't just cheer a touchdown. They exhaled a kind of collective disbelief, the heavy kind that comes after too many seasons of maybe next year. Sanders walked into a pressure cooker, not supposed to start yet, thrust into the spotlight by an injury, carrying a famous last name and the impossible expectations that come with it. He didn't play like a rookie scavenging for respect. He played like someone who believed the moment belonged to him. A 52-yard laser to Isaiah Bond and a 66-yard screen turned into a touchdown weren't just highlight plays. They were proof, flashes of playmaking that forced everyone watching to rethink assumptions. This wasn't a perfect debut. There was an interception, moments of rookie indecision. But what mattered most was how he moved on. Steady, unbothered, confident enough to keep the offense humming while a relentless defense did the heavy lifting. And yet, the box score only begins to tell the story. The real shift goes deeper. But the real story isn't the score. To understand why Shedeur Sanders' debut shook the entire city, you have to understand the weight he walked into. A weight that's been sitting on Cleveland's shoulders for almost 30 years. For most franchises, was a miracle. The Browns had built a reputation over the last few decades that no team would ever want. The place where quarterbacks go to struggle, stumble, or flat-out collapse under the pressure of bad timing, bad luck, or bad construction around them. Year after year, a new face would step into the huddle with hope attached to his shoulder pads and walk off the field with the same result. Another debut loss. Another storyline about the Browns' curse. Another notch in a streak that became infamous. Fans didn't even need the commentators to mention it anymore. They felt it every time a new rookie jogged out to take his first snap. There was this quiet tension, this expectation that no matter how good things looked in the first quarter, something would eventually go wrong. That's why Shedeur's win didn't feel small. It felt like a dam finally cracking open. A rookie quarterback winning his first start is a milestone, sure, but not a miracle. In Cleveland, he didn't tiptoe into this moment. He didn't shrink under the noise or the legacy of failure. Instead, he attacked the Raiders with the calm of someone who either didn't know the history or simply didn't care. And maybe that was the secret. Sometimes, the only person who can break a curse is the one who refuses to acknowledge it exists at all. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, Cleveland didn't have to watch a young quarterback walk off the field with his head down. They watched him jog off victorious, lifting not just the team, but the spirits of a fan base that desperately needed something new to believe in. And this wasn't luck. What came next made that very clear. What made Shedeur Sanders' debut impossible to ignore wasn't just the fact that he won, it was how he won. Rookie quarterbacks are usually encouraged to play safe, avoid the deep shots, minimize the risk, and rely heavily on short passes until they find their footing. But Sanders didn't show up to play scared football. From the very beginning, he made it clear he wasn't stepping into this moment to blend in. He was stepping in to take control of it. The first major jolt came when Sanders unleashed that 52-yard strike to Isaiah Bond, a throw that instantly changed the tone of the game. It wasn't a lucky heave or a desperate shot downfield. It was calculated, timed, and delivered with a confidence that made even the broadcast booth pause for a split second. That pass didn't just move the chains, it sent a message. A fifth-round rookie isn't supposed to make throws like that in his first start. But Sanders did it like he had been waiting for the chance. Then came the play that truly turned heads. A 66-yard screen to Dylan Sampson that became Sanders' first career touchdown. Screens are deceptively tricky. They require perfect timing, flawless disguise, and just enough patience to let the play develop. Sanders handled every part of it like a quarterback who had run that concept 100 times under pressure. His footwork was controlled, his release was crisp, and the placement was exactly where it needed to be to give Sampson room to explode. Even his interception, the rookie moment everyone expects, told a story about who he really is. Most young quarterbacks crumble after a pick. They get hesitant, jittery, afraid to push the ball again. Sanders didn't flinch. Instead, he walked back onto the field with the same aggression, the same belief, and the same steady pulse he had before the throw. That resilience mattered as much as any highlight play. These weren't accidents. These were the moments that made the league stop scrolling, stop doubting, and start paying attention. Sanders wasn't just filling in. He was announcing his arrival. As impressive as Shedeur Sanders looked in his debut, even he would tell you he wasn't out there alone. The Browns' defense didn't just show up. They unleashed one of the most vicious, relentless performances Cleveland fans have seen in years. If Sanders provided the spark, the defense provided the explosion. The Raiders never found a rhythm, never got comfortable, and never came close to controlling the pace of the game. Why? Because every time their quarterback dropped back, he faced a wave of pressure that refused to slow down. The Browns racked up 10 sacks, a staggering number in any NFL game, and a statement that defined the tone from start to finish. 10 sacks isn't defensive success, it's domination. It's a defense bending an opposing offense until it breaks. And at the center of that chaos was Myles Garrett, who looked every bit the generational force Cleveland knows he can be. 3 sacks on his own, countless pressures, and a presence that completely dismantled the Raiders' protection schemes. Garrett didn't just attack, he terrorized. And when your defense is playing at that level, it changes everything for a rookie quarterback making his first start. Instead of forcing Sanders into high-risk, high-pressure drives, the defense consistently gave him room to breathe. Short fields, momentum swings, and constant stops took the burden off his shoulders. That's one of the biggest hidden advantages in his debut. He didn't need to play hero ball. He didn't need to chase touchdowns on every drive or force impossible throws. He just needed to run the offense with poise. And he did exactly that. But here's what people often forget. Even with a dominant defense, the offense still has to execute. A rookie still has to convert third downs, avoid costly mistakes, and capitalize on openings. And Sanders handled all of that with the same calm, steady hand he carried throughout the night. This wasn't a defense carrying a quarterback. This was a defense empowering one, giving him the perfect runway to take off. What happened on the field was impressive, but what happened around the field might be just as important. Shedeur Sanders didn't enter the NFL as an anonymous fifth-round rookie fighting for scraps of attention. He entered with a last name that has carried weight in American sports for decades. The Sanders effect isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a real phenomenon that the NFL has been quietly preparing for ever since his college run began generating headlines. Even before his debut, the numbers were loud. His preseason game against Carolina attracted viewership that hadn't been seen in years for an exhibition matchup. Networks didn't hide it. People weren't tuning in for preseason football. They were tuning in for him. By the time he stepped onto the field for his first real NFL start, a buzz was already humming across social media, sports shows, and fan circles. All eyes were watching to see whether he would rise under the weight of his father's legacy or crack under the spotlight. But Shedeur handled it the same way he handled the Raiders' pass rush. Calm, unfazed, and focused. And that composure opened the door to something even larger: the commercial and cultural impact of a new star emerging in Cleveland. This is a franchise that has spent years being discussed for the wrong reasons: instability, controversy, disappointment, and endless quarterback experiments. Suddenly, they have a young face who can shift the tone of the conversation. Jersey sales are climbing. National broadcasts are highlighting Browns games again. Fans who checked out emotionally are creeping back in. And part of that is the power of the Sanders name. Deion "Primetime" Sanders didn't just play sports. He built a brand, a persona, a cultural identity. And while Shedeur isn't trying to replicate his father's swagger, the connection creates an undeniable gravitational pull. People want to see what the next chapter of that legacy looks like. But big names come with big expectations. And that's where the pressure begins to sharpen. One great debut can light up a fan base. But the NFL isn't a league that lets anyone celebrate for long. The moment Shedeur Sanders walked off that field with a win, every defensive coordinator on his upcoming schedule started digging into the film, looking for tendencies, weaknesses, and cracks they can pry open. That's the real test now. Not whether he can play well once, but whether he can evolve as fast as the league adjusts to him. Rookie quarterbacks usually get a brief window of surprise. Defenses don't fully know their timing, their favorite reads, or what rattles them. But that window closes fast. Coaches will start disguising coverages, sending exotic blitz packages, forcing Sanders to diagnose defenses before the snap instead of just reacting after it. They'll challenge his patience, bait him into tight throws, and dare him to win from the pocket without relying on those explosive plays he hit in his debut. This is where young quarterbacks either grow or get exposed. But the encouraging thing for Cleveland is that Sanders already showed something most rookies struggle to develop early: emotional discipline. When he threw that interception, he didn't spiral. He didn't shrink. He came back with the same confidence, the same rhythm, the same belief in the offense. That resilience, that sharp memory, is one of the traits that separates long-term starters from quick flameouts. Now he'll need it more than ever. The noise is only going to get louder. Media pressure, comparisons to his father, rising expectations, and the weight of becoming the possible franchise quarterback Cleveland has been searching for. All of it is coming. And on top of that, there's the physical grind of an NFL season: fatigue, injuries, cold weather games. And the mental battle of preparing every single week for defenses trying to knock him off balance. But Sanders has one major advantage. He's not doing this alone. He has a defense that can keep games within reach. He has young weapons developing chemistry with him. He has coaches who clearly trust him. And most importantly, he has that calm, unshakable demeanor that doesn't belong to most rookies. The debut was the spark. What comes next determines whether it becomes a fire. Even if you strip away the stats, the highlight plays, and the historical context, there's something deeper happening in Cleveland, something that feels bigger than a single win. Fans didn't react to Shedeur Sanders' debut like it was just another promising rookie performance. They reacted like they were watching a narrative shift right in front of them. The kind of shift that doesn't happen often in sports, but when it does, everyone can feel it. For years, the Browns have been the franchise people pointed at when they talked about chaos under center. So many young quarterbacks walked in with promise, only to walk out as another cautionary tale. But Sanders' arrival feels different. Not because he's perfect. He's not. Not because he's guaranteed success. No rookie is. But because he carries a sense of calm in the middle of a storm that Cleveland hasn't seen in a long time. There's a maturity in the way he commands the huddle, a confidence that isn't loud or flashy, and a quiet intensity that makes teammates respond. And it's not just the team that's responding. The fan base is waking up in a way that feels emotional rather than analytical. This city has been hungry for a quarterback they can invest in, someone to believe in without the fear of being let down again. Sanders' debut gave them permission to hope, even if they're doing it cautiously. But the story goes even deeper than Cleveland. Across the league, casual fans, analysts, and even players are paying attention. Part of that is the Sanders name, sure, the legacy, the expectations, the spotlight that comes with having a father who redefined swagger in sports. But part of it is Shedeur himself. He doesn't play like a kid chasing a legacy. He plays like someone intent on building his own. That's why his first win resonated. It wasn't just the end of a streak. It was the beginning of a possibility. A possibility that the Browns may have finally found stability in a position that's defined their chaos. A possibility that this rookie might be more than just a spark. He might be the foundation. But before anyone crowns him the future, there's still one more layer to uncover. When the clock hit 0 and Shedeur Sanders jogged off the field with his first NFL win, it wasn't just the end of a game. It felt like the end of an era. For nearly 3 decades, Cleveland lived under a shadow every time a rookie quarterback stepped under center. The streak of debut losses wasn't just a statistic. It became a symbol of everything the Browns couldn't figure out. But on this night, that symbol cracked. And in its place was something this franchise hasn't felt in a long time: genuine optimism. Still, optimism doesn't guarantee destiny. The NFL is a league built on unpredictability. Some rookies explode onto the scene and fade just as quickly. Others struggle early and become legends later. And then there are the rare few who take that first spark, that first moment where everything shifts, and build something real on top of it. That's the question now facing both Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. Was this a spark or the start of a fire? What makes this moment compelling isn't perfection, it's possibility. Sanders showed flashes of talent, poise, and leadership that can't be faked. He showed the resilience to shake off mistakes and the confidence to make throws veterans hesitate on. He showed the fan base and the league that this might not be another chapter in Cleveland's long quarterback saga. It might be the turning point that fans have been waiting for. But if this is going to be the beginning of something real, it will take more than a single victory. It will require consistency, growth, and the strength to handle the pressure that comes with being the most watched young quarterback in the league. It will require the Browns to build around him, trust him, and give him the stability the franchise has lacked for decades. For now, though, one thing is certain: Cleveland finally has a reason to believe again. And belief is powerful, especially in a city that's spent so long waiting for a moment just like this.